truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit republicbroadcasting.org today, because you can handle the truth.
I'm getting inside of that tonight. I'm feeling so empty. You getting empty, empty. Can you feel it? You getting empty. I know you do. You getting empty, empty. Feel the beat. You getting empty. I'll move your feet. You getting empty, empty. Sway the hips. Empty. I'll burst those lips. Getting empty, empty. Don't stop. You getting empty. It's about to pop. You getting empty, empty. I love you so. You getting empty.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites, fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child-trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. Seriously, one of these days he's going to get the bash. My very special guest that's joining me today, ladies and gentlemen, is a man from Troublesaway.net. Now, I know that a lot of people have their own personal problems, troubles, inconveniences, difficulties, and things of that nature. Don't we all? And as I was enlightened to yesterday by a 70-plus therapist, that never changes. You've always got some kind of problem that you have to deal with, no matter how young you are, no matter how old you are. There's always something going on. And today we got on a man who's going to tell us a little bit about where he thinks those problems are actually coming from. His name is Branton Kenton-Dau. Branton, welcome to the show.
Vinny, great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, as we do on this show, I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do.
Well, I live now in Christchurch, New Zealand. It's been my home for over 20 years. I came out from the UK, met my wife out here, and have 3 grown-up children who are all in the health profession in some way or other. And I've been a bit of an entrepreneur, I guess, but the overriding things have always been big ideas, and that's, I think, what kind of has brought us together today, is that a couple of things occurred during our whole lockdown experience, which got me thinking, if you like. And the first one was I just couldn't understand why it was so difficult to talk to people who weren't already on my wavelength about viruses or lockdowns or anything. It was just like, the wall came down and that was it. And that was, I found a very interesting experience. I couldn't, explain it. And the other thing that struck me was how, when it was, so obvious that perhaps we're dealing with a common cold or something, but, why everyone along with it? It's just like, I couldn't understand. I could understand that there were baddies in the world that wanted to do harm to us, but I couldn't actually understand why billions of people acquiesced to the mandates and the healthcare recommendations. And then as we went along and I started looking at other things, I just realized that, hold on a minute, it's not just mandates, not just viruses, it's not just the fact that we're going to have fluoride in the water, it's not just that we have additives in food, it's not just that the legal system, is a fiction. I just realized that I wasn't going to win. There were just too many troubles coming at me thick and fast. And, if there's one or two, then yes, I could probably, do something. So I realized that I spent all my life firefighting. But I'm just going to be overwhelmed because they're just coming so thick and fast now that there's no way that I can do what's best for me or my family, let alone everyone else. So that's what led me to Troublesaway, to really dive down into the source. What is the source of all these troubles? Now, Vinny, I've got to confess here, I got a degree in comparative religion and philosophy, so I'm kind of built for thinking about these big things. And also I've got, I've done a lot of reading and understanding about what's happened in our past. So that really helped. And anyway, where I got to with this is that I realized that we're actually dealing just with a single cause, that all our troubles, and as you mentioned in your introduction, and it could be, I've just cured myself from diabetes in 3 weeks, actually, type 1 diabetes. It could be, an incurable illness. It could be chronic pain you live with all your life. It could be concern over what the government's going to do next. It could be the fluoride in the water. It doesn't matter, because they all have a single source. They all go back to a single cause. So perhaps should we dive into how I kind of come to that point and what that single cause is. And maybe one way is to start with saying, okay, well, let's just say where our troubles aren't coming from. To start with, kind of clear the decks a bit. So despite what we're being sold in the media, it's clear that our troubles are not coming from the natural world. So we're not being inundated by volcanoes or tsunamis. Those are our troubles. Our troubles come from mandates or the drinking too much or the arguments we have with our wife or whatever. They're human-made problems. So it's not the natural world. They're human-made problems that we're dealing with. And then the other thing that is pretty clear is that they're not coming from a particular person. I know we all love to blame. We can talk about that. We'll get to that, why we do that. But, it's obvious that as soon as one person is taken out of office, if you like, and another arrives, do our problems disappear? No, they don't. So there's no point hating the current leader who's imposing these restrictions upon us, because when they go, someone else takes their place. So, if it was a question of just one person, one grand evil person that we could deal with, then, our problems would have been over a long time ago. So we're not dealing with a specific person, right? And then the one that we all love is to blame the small global elite that control most of life on Earth. And these could be the unacknowledged special access projects that have kept zero-point energy devices hidden for 130 years, or it could be whatever your favorite, the Rothschilds. It doesn't matter. But the global elite, I'm not saying that these people don't exist, because I think they clearly do. But what I'm saying is they're not the cause of the problem. And in fact, as we'll probably discover later, they are as embedded in the problem as we are. They're not different from us, and it's not in their interest to destroy life on Earth. It's not in their interest to do that. So why are they doing that? They're behaving as compulsively as everyone else. And then the third thing I came to is that even though I think things are coming to a head, it feels like a real time of awakening now. You know, the darkness is really dark, but also that's partly because the light is so strong now as well, is that this has been going on for some time. You know, we all think we're pretty special because it's this time now. But I just was finished reading a fantastic book, New Zealand's greatest doctor, Ulrich Williams. And he was dealing with exactly the same things in the 1930s. He was a surgeon who had a revelation that it was not a good idea to cut up people's bodies, and became a naturopath, an incredibly successful naturopath, and was shunned by the medical system and things. So we know it's gone back that far. But it's gone back for hundreds of years, thousands of years. You know, mankind has found ways to destroy itself for a long time. So this is not recent, but I do hope we're coming to a head. And here's a great example. You know, until 1502, when the practice was stopped, the Aztecs are reported to have yearly ritually slaughtered 1% of their population. They took them to the top of the temples and they slit open their bellies and tore out their hearts. And this was institutionalized slaughter. And so we found, even before we've had vaccines or 5G, human beings have found pretty impressive ways to destroy themselves for a long time. So the exciting thing about all that is that leads us back to where starts to lead us back to the source of all our troubles. And the thing that to realize is that something happened in our past, a very exciting thing actually. It happened around 1500 BC, when we first became conscious, in the sense that you can start be thinking about what you can have for your lunch, right? I'm saying, okay, what should I plant in the garden this year? We can do that because we've got an internal space in our minds, our imaginations, where we can actually dream and think about things. But until 1500 BC, men and women didn't have that. They didn't have that. So what it means to be a man and woman actually has changed. We've only been this way, we've only been conscious in that sense for about 3,500 years. And it was that transition into consciousness which actually was the cause of our troubles. And here's why. When you fall or bash your elbow, right, your body goes into shock, right? Your pupils dilate, all your energy goes into the core to protect yourself. And that's designed to give you the best chance of survival in a physical emergency. Now, the thing to understand that gets to the bottom of all this is that the psyche also has first aid that it uses to deal with cataclysmic events. And there's two things that the psyche does. The first thing the psyche does is that if there's a traumatic event, we do our best to forget it. Forget, it's amnesia. So, for example, there's in the survivors of the Hiroshima bomb, there was an American psychiatrist, Robert J. Lipton, who wrote a book called Death in Life, where he interviewed the people who had been through that experience. And he said that within minutes of the blast, sometimes seconds, there was this psychic numbing, because the human system cannot deal with an normative event like that just rips away the world. So we go into this we stop feeling. We go into this shock of no feeling. And we know that down here in Christchurch, because in 2011, as you know, we had the earthquakes here, so we kind of went into all that shock stuff as well. And it took us years to come out. I
did a lot of work during that time, there was a lot of theories going around that might have not been a natural earthquake, but I digress. Please continue.
So, and then as soon as we can, we actually block out the experience. We forget because it's just too hard to handle. So where does that go? We actually just push it into the collective unconscious, to the unconscious. We don't want to know about it. But that is the cause of our problem. The second thing we do is that, and this is interesting, this was a real revelation, and this really goes to the heart. This starts to unravel the cause of all our problems. Because the second first aid that the psyche does is that we feel guilty. We blame ourselves. So Robert J. Lifton, when he was interviewing the survivors of the Hiroshima bomb, he said, it's impossible, actually, to experience any kind of trauma without the feeling of guilt. Now that sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? How is guilt a survival tactic for us? How does guilt give us the best chance of dealing with an overwhelming event? Well, this is why. Because the one thing that we can't stand as human beings is to feel that we have no control. And so when something happens to us, which is so massively devastating, the way that we can regain control is that we blame ourselves for what's happening. So instead of being an insignificant pawn in something that we just is blowing us away, all of a sudden, if I'm the one if it's my fault, I'm again at the center of these things because I'm the one that caused all this, whatever it is, this devastation, the bomb or whatever. So the second thing we do is we feel guilty. Now, if you're, say, a victim of Hiroshima bomb, you couldn't bear that guilt, right? To feel that you're the responsible for the dropping of a bomb that's instantly killed, destroyed a city, you can't bear it. So guess what happens? So all that gets pushed into the cupboard of the unconscious as well. So all of a sudden here we've got both the trauma of the event, the fear, the terror, the grief, the loss, the despair of the event in the cupboard of the conscious. We also now have these feelings of guilt. Now, the main thing to realize in all this, Vinny, is first aid. It gave us the best chance to survive what was otherwise intolerable situation. But the problem is that when we pushed all these things that we couldn't handle at the time into the unconscious. And the problem with that is that great at the time helped us survive, the members of the human race that did survive the events of 1500 BC, but it's left us with all these feelings and beliefs in the cupboard of the unconscious, which our psyche still believes are applicable today. They don't go away. We want them to go away. We don't ever want to know anything more about them, but they keep popping up in our lives. And this is actually the cause of our troubles, is that these unconscious feeling beliefs are continually recreating events in our lives, right, based on that original experience of 1500 BC. So that's the really good news, because we're kind of getting to the point to understand that actually we're being controlled, but probably not as many of your listeners would think. You know, we're being controlled by unconscious feelings, beliefs, which we've got absolutely no idea about. So this is why it's continued for so long, right? The conscious mind can't see this. The conscious mind's just can't see what's happening.
Well, we're going to have to talk about consciousness and the mind when we come back from the break, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. We'll be right back at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Was
Tom Bolton for Ease Off. I know so many of you are finding our Easy 4 carcass drop and lift an essential tool for your meat processing operation. But today I want to spotlight 4 of our new products. First, our right height hog cradles with steel or aluminum frames. Our customers love this back-saving innovation that enhances sanitation and speeds production. Next, our beef cradles with stainless steel or aluminum frames eliminate rust and corrosion. We hope you'll compare our quality and prices for this essential part of your processing line. Our cradles are especially effective when used with our power skinner. And finally, our hook tumbler will keep your hooks clean and polished. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows, too.
Ease Off, LLC, 417-932-6419.
I'm so excited to have you as part of the Wild Pastures family, and we look forward to bringing you the pasture-raised meats that you and your family will love. Now, we started Wild Pastures because so many of my clients would tell me they just couldn't find high-quality pasture-raised meats, and even when they did, it was so expensive that they couldn't afford to eat it regularly. Now, I'm not talking about the bottom-of-the-barrel healthy meats that have claims like natural or free-range or even cage-free, terms that were actually created by the industrial food industry to make us feel all warm and fuzzy about buying their low-quality products. I'm talking about truly nourishing pasture-raised meats, the kind that you'll never really find in a grocery store. Our farmers are doing things beyond organic. Our beef is 100% grass-fed and grass-finished and raised on pastures free from chemicals and other pesticides. Our chickens are 100% pasture-raised, where they get their natural diet of grass and forage and insects. We will never settle for free range, which is actually one of the most deceptive terms in the chicken industry. In fact, less than 0.1% of the chicken consumed in the United States is truly pasture-raised in the way that ours is. And our pork is 100% pasture-raised as well. So if you care about where your food comes from, then you have definitely made it to the right place. As a Wild Pastures member, you'll be supporting the most highly principled farmers in America and getting the most nutrient-dense, nourishing, and sustainable meats in the world. But I'm confident you'll love being part of our mission at Wild Pastures, and you will really love the delicious, nourishing meats that we're going to deliver straight to your door.
Visit republicbroadcasting.org and click the Wild Pastures banner ad. Secure a shipment today. Beef, poultry, and pork, raised the way nature intended.
All right.
Welcome back. Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. My very special guest, Branton, is laying down the possibility, or what he thinks is a certainty, that the reason why everybody does the things that they do, we kill ourselves with drugs and alcohol and various other forms of addiction like sex and video games and entertainment and movies and music and things of that nature, because our body makes us feel guilty on a subconscious level. The guilt is so massive for all the things that we've survived that other people haven't, that it is leached into our consciousness itself and is running a subroutine, a program, if you will, that is basically the cause of all of mankind's self-destructive behaviors. Branton, thank you so much for joining me today. Could you please continue on with that thought?
Well, certainly, Vinny, that was a great summary. Thank you so much. Well, let's just so we've talked a little bit about, okay, when we have faced with a cataclysmic experience, things get pushed into the unconscious, and there they don't just sit there, but they keep recreating themselves in our lives again and again and again. So we're in a kind of time loop. So the thing that we haven't got to yet is, well, I've talked about the Hiroshima bomb, but that was an isolated incident. So if we as a humanity have a collective unconscious where we keep repeating the trauma of the past, what was the event in the past that created this situation? So let's talk a little bit about that, because it's actually pretty exciting, I think, the kind of history behind this, that what actually gave rise to this experience of being human around 1500 BC. But before I do that, I want to say that this is a bit of a crunch point, because as you remember, one of the things we forget, don't we? Amnesia is one of our first aid tactics that we have. So, so what I'm about to share with you has been an amnesia. We don't want to hear about it, right? So it's going to be pretty hard for many people to kind of accept what I'm going to say. So, so I want to just give a little bit of an example first of the extent that we go to as a race, as a human race, to keep ourselves in amnesia. And it's pretty exciting, and we're all on this journey, I think, to start discovering just how much of our world is fantasy, right? How much of what we believe is true is actually not true. Now, we're not going to step into virology here, or the legal system, or other fantasies. But let's look at one where the purpose of this fantasy is to keep us in amnesia, to keep us forgetful that anything ever happened in our past. So let's talk about, first of all, about the theory of evolution. Now, the theory of evolution says that we all descended from apes over long periods of time through very small changes. And as soon as I say that, you can start to see what that is trying to say. Darwin published Origin of Species in November 1859, and we take that as science, and it's taught to our children, millions of children all around the world, and we accept, probably to a large extent, that this is true. It's not true. And as soon as we, like all fantasies, as soon as you start looking at the facts, it becomes pretty obvious that it's not true. But what's it kind of trying to do? Well, if you have a theory, which you call science, which says that changes only take place, very small changes, gradually over very long periods of time, you can see that this immediately excludes any possibility of a cataclysmic event ever happening in our past. So actually, the theory of evolution is part of the amnesia. It's a theory designed to convince ourselves that nothing cataclysmic could have ever taken place in our past. Now, we know this is not true because, for instance, Immanuel Velikovsky wrote a fantastic book called Earth and Upheaval, where he outlines the physical evidence for cataclysms. But one of the things he talks about there is the thousands and thousands and thousands of carcasses of mammoth found on islands and north of Siberia, so 300 kilometers within the Arctic Circle. Now, Vinny, this is really interesting because mammoths can't survive in Arctic conditions. To begin with, they require huge quantities of food to eat every day.
And we require huge amounts of ad breaks as well to keep the lights on, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back after this short one. Don't you go anywhere, guys. You're listening to The Vinny Eastwood Show at thevinnyeastwoodshow.com. Please go there and check out all the ways that we're streaming and archiving and whatnot. It'd be a shame for it to all go to waste. We'll see you back in a moment.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from libertystickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. Libertystickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at libertystickers.com. Again, that's libertystickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Einstein once said, future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. What did he know? Imagine you hear ocean waves caressing a beach, or a favorite song from the past, or the trickle of the babbling brook. All of these are sound frequencies that positively affect us. Terahertz is a soothing, healing frequency that has been proven to resonate at the same frequency as healthy cells. It penetrates the body and stimulates new healthy cell growth. Want to diminish muscle aches, joint pains, and experience a greater sense of well-being? Tired of spending money on short-term remedies that never seem to work? Soothing, healing, relaxing terahertz frequency is now available and as handy as flipping a switch. Terahertz technology is changing the course of what we were taught about how to maintain our health and well-being. To learn more about this amazing breakthrough, go to naturalearthmedicine.com. That's naturalearthmedicine.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the show that's all about getting your Luftwaffe aloft. It's the Vinny Eastwood Show, and my very special guest has been telling us about evolution, how it's a crock, and that rapid advancement happens all the time in terms of organisms transitioning into other ones and what have you. And that, of course, as we know, even with today's technology, organisms can be created artificially, which basically shows evolution to be the bunk that it is. And indeed, Darwin was allegedly an atheist, and he didn't want to use that word, so they came up with the term agnostic. And what this means is that there is no God. You know, nobody designed all the things here to work in perfect harmony and so on and so forth as they do with a kind of boom and bust cycle of what have you. No. This was all accidental, mate. Somebody threw up the raw resources that are required to make an iMac into the air, And at some point, after throwing it up many, many times, it randomly assembled itself into a working iMac. That's what he's saying. That sounds absolutely insane. And when the entire human race buys in to an insane idea, what do you think that makes the entire human race act like? Crazy people. Branton, welcome back.
Thanks, Vinny. But yeah, just to finish off that story, what were thousands of mammoths doing 300 miles within inside the Arctic Circle? And Darwin couldn't actually answer this. And the other thing they found is that many of the flesh of many of these mammoths was still good enough to eat. So whatever happened to those mammoths must have happened within the space of just a few hours while they're eating their lunch. So whatever cataclysm, whatever event threw the entire thousands of mammoths into the Arctic Circle within what could have only been the space of a few hours is hardly what you call small changes taking place over very long periods of time. And Darwin couldn't actually, had no explanation for this. So what I'm saying is that, theory of evolution taught for in schools is actually, as you say, is a fiction, but it serves the purpose as keeping us in amnesia about what happened. Because what did happen as we became conscious is that it was the most traumatic experience that human beings have ever had. Because, as I mentioned, up until that time, we were directly connected to the source of all there is. We were directly connected to the gods. All around the world, cultures talk about a golden age, an age of innocence, where there was no. We were just connected to source. And in fact, Julian James, in his book The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind, says that actually they spoke to us directly within our brains because we had no imaginative space. So we were just intimately connected. So when we lost that connection around 1500 BC, it was the most traumatic experience that human beings could ever have. Because there was the loss of all that gave meaning and purpose and value to our lives. So if you think about the time that has been the hardest for you, when you felt just such utter despair, then you might have some idea what it was like for the human race. And at the same time...
Branton, 1 second here. We're just having a little bit of interference from the studio. RBN, could you mute your mic, please? There's a little bit of a bleed over the feed. Thank you. So sorry about that. Continue, Branton.
That's okay. Yeah, so at the same time as that, as part of that experience of separation, the Earth was involved in just huge physical cataclysms as Venus had a near miss with us twice, actually, within 52 years, which caused waves kilometers high. It had lava flowing over vast areas of continents. It shifted the poles, hence the mammoths. We had flaming bitumen from the sky, meteorites from the sky that still cover much of the Saudi Arabia. It was most of the human race died, but in both those events. Immanuel Velikovsky wrote a book called Worlds in Collision in 1950, where he cited the literary evidence for these events. And needless to say, he was witch hunt for bringing forth these things to light. But the main point is to realize that we have had this experience, which we've done our best to forget for all this time. But this is the source of our troubles, because this is what was global and therefore created this collective unconscious of these feeling beliefs of terror, grief, loss, despair, judgment, guilt, shame, undeserving, and the need for punishment. And so when we realized that what our past was like and that we actually changed during that experience, we became conscious, but we also started walking around with this black box, if you like, this cupboard of unconscious beliefs that really the history of the human race is, since that time, for the last 3,500 years, is really just about us repeating over and over and over again the trauma of those past events. So what we've been through the last few years, you might say, oh, it's all new, but actually it's called repetition compulsion. We're just reliving. We're kind of trapped in a time loop when we can't get out of. For the reasons you stated, is because we're really, much of our life is controlled on, we're on automatic, we're automatons. And then there's nothing our conscious mind can do about it because it's all unconscious. The conscious mind is like being under sniper fire. We know we're being taken down, but we don't know where the bullets are coming from because the conscious mind can't figure out what's happening. We just behave compulsively and go and have these experiences, but they're all because of this original trauma. Now, the very good news, and I know this has been a very long time coming to the punchline, but the very good news is that once we realize where our troubles are coming from, the solution is actually really pretty straightforward, because all we need to do is to just clear that cupboard of the unconscious, right? To clear those feeling beliefs while compulsively determining our lives and may shortly lead the human race to extinction. I don't think that's going to happen because I think this is the time of awakening. But awakening really means realizing where our troubles are coming from this collective unconscious, from this experience, this most devastating experience of trauma that took place around 1500 BC. And I want to say the way to do that, though, this is the interesting part, Vinny, I think, and I had no idea about this until recently. As you say, because we're so determined by these compulsive behaviors, it's a bit like we're a character in a computer game. We're locked in the matrix. So there's no way this computer game, which is this identity based on all these feeling beliefs, which are all actually not true. I can go into that as well, but they're not true. There's no way that this computer character can actually get itself out of the game. It's impossible, isn't it? You can't expect a computer character to exit the game. So we have to call on our higher selves, Vinny. You can call it spirit, you can call it God if you want, infinite intelligence. But the way to clear the cupboard of the unconscious is to actually connect to our spirit, to ask our spirit. And there's some really simple ways. I mean, let's just put the simplest way, okay, right here, right now. So the simplest way is just say to yourself, spirit, using the word spirit. I actually use the word child in the Troublesaway program. Let's say spirit. Spirit, clear the collective unconscious. And thank you. Spirit, clear the collective unconscious. Thank you. And that's all we have to do is call upon spirit, because our spirit is pure. Our spirit is not affected by the cupboard of the unconscious, all those unconscious feeling beliefs. Our spirit is unchangeable, immutable. It is source. It's connected to what we think. We separated from around 1500 BC. We actually never separated, which actually, Vinny, is the source of all our lies. It's the original lie, if you like, that's given rise to all the other lies about ourselves and about the world. So the solution, once we realize that we're basically, we've lived for 3,500 years in a traumatized state, but the solution really is to call upon our higher selves, because it's our higher self that can clear the cupboard, because it's all a pack of lies when it comes down to it, really. And that's why we have lies, perpetuated in the world as well. I know you're very familiar with all those. But it's like, I don't know if you know Pollock's work, when he discovered the fourth phase of water. He discovered that if you pour a glass of water the water molecules will actually form a layer of pure water right next to the glass. So it doesn't matter how contaminated the rest of the glass is. It could have fluoride in it could have radioactive waste, it could have dirt in it. It doesn't matter, because there's an exclusion zone, a zone where the water automatically pushes away all impurities. So you only have pure water next to the surface of the glass. And we're like that. So no matter what we've done in our lives, so that we want to feel guilty for, or whatever beliefs that we're being controlled by in the unconscious, none of that matters if we return to spirit and just call on spirit. And there's a really, really beautiful way that I've been doing this recently, based on the Hawaiian traditional healing form of Ho'oponopono. And I'm a terrible singer, but so maybe I'll just say it wrong. But it goes like this, and really this is basically the way to heal ourselves, but also to heal the world, because it's collective, right? So as we remove this collective unconsciousness from ourselves, we're doing the same for the world. So every time I say this or you say this afterwards, we're actually clearing it for everyone else as well. And then when this lifts, then the troubles, we aren't going to have the troubles we have today. So it goes like this. So he says, Spirit, I'm sorry. I've not been able to clear the collective unconscious. Spirit, please forgive me for the harm I've caused myself and others. I give this problem over to you. Spirit, I thank you for the successful resolution of this problem. Spirit, I love you. I love you. I love you. So, Vinny, I think in really is the simplest form, if we say that to ourselves daily, I go around singing it, that will clear the collective unconscious, because it's all so simple, really. I mean, we've all been living a lie, and it's a lie that's perpetuated itself because it's unconscious. We've not been aware of it. And we've tried as we might. I know the efforts you go to, I've done to, millions of people trying so hard to live a better life, to overcome their problems, overcome their addictions, deal with the government. But really what we have to do is let go of the original delusion, the cupboard of the unconscious, where all these feeling beliefs about ourselves are there, which none of them are true. And if we call on spirit to do that, then I think we're going to find ourselves living in a much different world. Because just as what it meant to be human was different before 1500 BC, when the God spoke directly to us, I think we're changing again. I think we're in a state of transition at the moment, and that's why we've got all the hiccups we've got. But it is really a process of just letting go of all those things we believe about ourselves, which is not true, which are in the cupboard of the unconscious. And I think that Ho'oponopono is just really fantastic way to do it. And a simpler way is just to say, Spirit, clear the cupboard of the unconscious. And that's what you really need to do.
Wow, man. I felt something there. And I was just kind of thinking as well about something that Bill Hicks said about how people who engage in philosophy and higher thought and things of that nature aren't necessarily conscious, and they don't really know the value of it, you know? He was taking a philosophy class during the summer when a lot of jocks would just be doing it to make up extra credit, and this lecturer comes out and says, God is consciousness, and we are all God trying to realize our own power. And this guy in the back raises his hand. He goes, yeah, we're going to need to know that. Is that going to be on the quiz?
Yes, well, really saw the point, eh? Yes. So what's been interesting, Vinny, and just before we went on, you were talking about, sipping your lemon water as kind of part of your cleansing process, is that in my experience has been, as we start realizing both the lies we've been living under and we as society live in, but also to start hearing the public.
Oh, man. I'll just tell you the radio. Oh, man. Okay. I'm very sorry about that. Break through, ladies and gentlemen. Try and break through to the other side. Troublesaway.net. Troublesaway.net is my very special guest, Branton Kenton-Dau's website there. And thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Branton, for joining us. Thank you, all of those in the chat room. And we will see you again next time on the VinnyEastwoodShow.com.
They sacrifice me like all the rest. Held me up to display my distress. I was a prime suspect in a bootleg investigation of crime neglect to my needs and all my blood. A prime suspect.
Are you sick of censorship? TLB Talk is the cure. TLB stands for Truth, Liberty, and Balance. We are the newest and most unique social media platform to hit the internet. We were built out of necessity.